Hey everyone, JJ from JJ's Battle Report here, and this is what happened at Vancouver Regionals for the 2025 season. We start our stream off for round 3 for the weekend. It is Cody Graham with Lugia V-Star up against Matthew Wood with Golden Go EX. Now, this was an interesting game. Cody actually had the perfect setup and got a Cornerstone Mask Ogre Pawn out, but just overbenched Illuminion when he did not need to, allowed Matthew Wood to utilize just enough bosses orders and countercatchers to be able to take the game 1. Game 2, Matthew set up the 1-1-1 Dragapult EX in the deck thanks to Technical Machine Evolution, was really just able to overwhelm from there. Quick 2-0 after what was a very big misplay in game 1. Round 4 was Andrew Kennett with Flareon EX up against Scotty with that Poison Party. Now, this was an interesting match just because Scotty miscounted some damage on an attack early on. Andrew did not discard a Noctowl off of a knockout and then Area 0, so unfortunately had the game in hand, but just needed a Noctowl in the discard, did not get there. Game 2, Andrew was able to get pretty set up and able to just take prizes, take the game. Game 3, it just did not have enough time. Andrew was able to stall a little bit with Angelite, and it provided to where Scotty was not able to actually take the win in game 3, ended up being a tie. Round 5, it is the old heads, Chris Silver up against Ross Cawthon. Now, Ross has had a World's Invite every season that it has been available, and Chris has been playing since even before Ross started playing. Now, this is Archaludon EX up against Maridon EX, and this was, it went to 3 games. It was a good back and forth. There were some great moments in there. I feel like Chris missequenced a little bit on some of his turns, and because of that, it allowed Ross to even stay in the game. This is a matchup where Archaludon EX has a real good time into Maridon. Ross ended up taking it 2-1, and you can kind of tell that Chris didn't really play too much with this Archaludon deck, and Ross knew his deck in and out. For round 6, we have Simon Trottier-Lacasse up against Piper Lepine. It is Lost Zone up against Gardevoir EX. Now, this is turned into a match where just Gardevoir really tries to have its way with Lost Zone as long as the Gardevoir player plays Klefki and a Fluttermane. Piper did play that, was able to get that set up in game 2 to great effect. Game 1, it was just all about Screamtail knocking out Radiant Greninja. I believe Simon got back Radiant Greninja like 4 times, and the same Screamtail was in play for pretty much the entire game. It was an interesting match to go and watch back, and I feel like Piper just knows how to play these matchups very well, and you can definitely tell she's put in a lot of the work with this Gardevoir deck. For our round 7, probably our best match of day 1, it is Azul Garcia Griego with Maridon up against Lucas Xing with that Golden Go EX. Now, this was a pretty great match. Azul had a very slow Iron Hands, was basically behind a turn in game 1, and Lucas was able to just do Golden Go's thing, be able to take those big knockouts. Ended up taking game 1. Game 2, Azul had Iron Hands plus Magneton, and then was able to top deck boss's orders and double turbo energy off of that Roxanne, and that was able to seal up the last 2 prizes for game 2. Game 3, unfortunately for Lucas, was just pass with a Pokemon in the active. Azul able to get that turn 1 knockout, and just like that, Azul wins round 7 2-1, although Lucas had a pretty solid tournament afterwards. Just letting you know, next round there's going to be a content warning for all you Pokemon trainers aspiring to be the best. This is your warning now. We have round 8. It is our last round of day 1. Now, this is Nico Gifts up against Lee Bui, and it is Dragapult EX with Dusknoir up against Turbo Roaring Moon EX. Now, Turbo Roaring Moon is one of the decks that didn't really become too popular anymore, just with all the other stuff you could play around. Badu also hits for weakness, so stuff like Poison Party is a very hard matchup for you. I felt like both players were really just trying to give the other the win. This match, it was quite a few minor errors, minor mistakes, sequencing stuff, but then there was a couple egregious things you could do. I feel like Lee could have had the game a lot earlier in a lot of these games, but ended up coming out the victor. Now, you can go back and watch it yourself. It just a lot of awkward lines that both players ended up deciding to take. Round 11, it is the start of our day 2. It is Andrew up against Saumit and Dragapult EX Dustnor up against Lugia V-Star. And this was a game that was very good. It ended up in a tie, both players able to really showcase what their deck can do. Saumit got very early on Iron Hands, was able to be very oppressive there, and then finish up with Chinchino or something like a Weird Ear. And then game 2, Andrew Hedrick took 6 prizes in one turn, and it was glorious to see. And they did not have enough time to really get things finished in game 3, so ended with a tie. But I believe both of these players did make it into top cuts, so it really doesn't matter too much. For our final Swiss round, it is Rowan Stavenow with Gardevoir EX up against Aneil Saini with Dragapult EX. And it was closer to Tord's list with the one rare candy, the Monkey Dory, and doing very well for himself, looking for that first top 8. Now, this was just a game 1 affair. Game 1 took forever, both players playing back and forth. Rowan was able to use Cresselia like 3 or 4 different times. Moonglow reverse, taking knockouts on Cloaks. And it was really just a ton of damage counters spread everywhere. A very good masterclass of how this game could go. And it really just relied on Rowan Iono, Aneil down to, I think, 1 or 2 cards. And Aneil needed that Professor Turo or Crispin to be able to win the game, had to retreat the active Radiant Alakazam, was able to find the Crispin off the top of the deck, and had 2 energy left, was able to retreat, win the game. Game 2, Rowan started double Ralts, nothing else. Badu took over with Itchy Pollen for a couple turns, and once Aneil got a Dragapult EX in play, was able to boss or countercatcher the Curlia and knock out both of them. Just wasn't really much of a game 2, but just like that, Aneil moving on into top cut. Now our asymmetric top cut for the day, it is Caleb Rogerson up against Makani Tran, Miraidon up against Gardevoir EX. Now this was really close 3 games. I honestly just go back and watch it. It was really fun. Caleb Rogerson had some mishaps on electric generators for the wins that Makani was able to get. And then it really just, Makani played out of his mind this match, trying to make a comeback. Just unfortunately, Caleb was able to stretch her back Raichu, hit an energy off of electric generator, and then he had to restart with Mew, draw 3 cards, try to find the energy, found the energy, and was able to dynamic spark, take the knockout for game. And Caleb moving on into top 8. Commiserations to Makani, but you did the best you could. For our top 8 match of the day, it is Trevor Reed up against Andrew Hedrick, Golden Go EX up against Dragapult EX. Now, both players are very well accomplished in their own right, but Hedrick has been on a tear all last season. This season was a little bit quiet, but was trying to prove something here today with Dragapult, and he really was just able to do that. Trevor, game 1, ended up giving up the 6 prize turn to Andrew, and you always hate to see it, but this is what Andrew has been doing the entire tournament. Then game 2, Andrew actually just locked things down, took the completely different approach, used that Itchy Pollen with Badu, was able to lock items out when Trevor had 10 energy in the discard, 2 metal in play, no way to attack the Badu and deal 30 damage. And just like that, game was over. Andrew Hedrick moving on into top 4. For our top 4 match, it is Li Bui up against Lucas Xing, and it is Roaring Moon EX versus Golden Go EX. Now, on paper, it could be a back and forth, really, but Golden Go having 260 HP, definitely a big help. The ability for Lee just to Frenzied Gouging, take the knockout, was definitely huge, especially just because Lucas still has to respond with a KO. So it really is a back and forth on the prize trade. You try to maybe fit in that Baby Moon, or as we saw in this top 4 game, the Spiritomb from Lucas, being able to fade out on a poisoned Frenzied Gouging Roaring Moon EX to be able to take the knockout in between turns meant no Pheasantipity draw for Lee, and really just was very behind on that. and it ended up being a quick 2-0 for Lucas. Just really was able to get set up very well in game 2, and really riding high on that Spiritomb fade out play. There was nothing really much Lee could do. Now we are at the finals. Lucas Xing versus Andrew Hedrick, and it is Golden Go EX versus Dragapult EX. This was one of the best finals that we have watched in a while. I'm also biased because I was able to cast the finals. It was amazing. Go back and watch it. It is just such great play from both of these players, and some shenanigans happened too, where it made the game real interesting. And yeah, just go back and watch it. Andrew ended up winning 2-1, and it was great to see. Very different from the top 8 match that we saw Andrew play against Trevor. Lucas definitely knowing the matchup a little bit better, and was kind of able to try and overcome a lot of the stuff that Andrew could plan for the matchup. Game 1, Andrew was struggling to find Dragapult after milling one off Pokestop and using a Night Stretcher on a Badoo, and ended the game with just Dracloaks passing back the turn as they get knocked out from Lucas's Golden Go. Game 2, it ended up where a quick 2 prizes for Andrew, and then having the ability to spread some damage on Golden Go EXs, set up the big Ultra Ball for Dragapult Energy, boss, double KO 4 prize turn. And then game 3, Andrew's playing it very slow, trying to get things set up a 5 prize turn, and was able to Iono Lucas down to 1, and was just hoping that he whiffed. Ended up drawing Superior Energy Trio, Buddy Buddy Puffin. That's not going to do it. Scoop. And Andrew Hedrick won his 4th regionals of his career, already an IC champion, so now has his Worlds invite locked up yet again thanks to this tournament, and cannot wait to see how he does in the rest of these tournaments going forward. Now, Lucas, again, played just to the best of his ability. It was great watching him play on stream the entire weekend, and we know it's not going to be the last of Lucas. Already has the invite locked up through points. You kind of have to guarantee, but we'll really have to try to hunker down and take down one of these next few tournaments leading up into Worlds. Again, I want to thank all y'all for watching, following along throughout the weekend, and then this video as well. Be sure to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more content. I'm going to be starting backwards, working on the season so far. So I think the next video I'm going to do for this season is Baltimore, so be on the lookout for that. But as of right now, I want to say thank you all again. See you later.